All right, we are back here on Sports Line talking Super Bowl 53. Patriots win their 6th Super Bowl title, 13-3 over the Los Angeles Rams. Had a few people call in and say it was okay, not great. Certainly the numbers and television ratings reflect that today. I think Atlanta, though, was a star. I think Atlanta did a really good job of hosting the game. Mercedes-Benz Stadium was phenomenal. The ribbon board and the scoreboard in there are great. The sight lines are phenomenal. The amenities are great. Food and beverage program is award-winning. That is a gem of a stadium. And if you're a city out there wanting to build a new stadium to fit your football team, or maybe try to attract a game like the Super Bowl, an event like the Super Bowl, that is a good place to look for a blueprint, because that is a really, really, really fantastic place. I think Atlanta was really friendly. I think they looked very prepared. I think they set things up well. So I think all that was good. It was convenient downtown for the most part. Here were my couple of complaints. Number one of the big selling points of the Atlanta Super Bowl was that the NFL puts on 15 official events each year at the Super Bowl, from the game to press conferences, etc. One of the real selling points of Atlanta was that 13 of the 15 events took place in what they called the downtown campus, a 5 or 6 block radius around Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The unfortunate thing there is one of the 2 that did not was the Rams media availability every day, which took place at a hotel in Buckhead, which, if you know Atlanta traffic, that's not exactly easy to pull off when you have other places you have to be as well. And it happened every day. And then on top of that, for the team's perspective, the hotel they stayed in, while incredibly nice, was not equipped to handle the masses of media that were coming to Buckhead to do this. So they had to bus the team from one hotel down the street to another hotel that had an appropriate sized ballroom for the crowd. But yet that ballroom wasn't big enough for the crowd, so it was as cramped as I can possibly imagine anything. So that's one thing that's a problem, is the media masses that come to the Super Bowl are unlike anything else. You have to be prepared to accommodate them. And they didn't do a great job of that. It was not fun dealing with the Rams in that cramped hotel, and it was difficult to get to. You had to make a serious commitment where you gave up other things if you were trying to cover various parts of the week. So that's one thing that I would urge them to think about correcting in the future if they get a Super Bowl, which they will at some point. This stadium will bring the Super Bowl back to Atlanta at some point in the not too distant future, whatever that may be. The other thing that I found interesting just in the setup of the week was they did a really good job of creating a park right there in Centennial Park, built for the Olympics, setup and all that. But they created a Super Bowl live park. It had a replica giant Lombardi trophy. They had multiple stages. I think ESPN was set up out there. They had an actual Super Bowl live stage that had concerts every night. It was really, really good. The fascinating thing to me, though, is the park wasn't open at all on Tuesday or Wednesday of the week. It opened the weekend before, did a little bit on Monday night. Tuesday and Wednesday is totally closed. So on those days, you walked around Atlanta and you sort of felt like, is the Super Bowl even here? There wasn't much of a buzz. That, to me, was perplexing. And I talked to some of the Nashville people who were down there sort of scouting it out in preparation for the draft and said, obviously this is a ways off, but if Nashville ever hosted the Super Bowl, would they do something like that? And they were like, well, yeah, we'd have a park, we'd have music, we'd do all that, but there's no way we'd ever shut it down. We open it up, that baby's staying open the whole time. I agree. So I don't know why Atlanta chose to do it that way. And then the third small critique, and again, I think overall the stadium, the amenities, everything really good. There just was a lack of buzz. Even on the weekend, there were masses of crowds that came in starting Thursday night and particularly Friday and Saturday and leading up to the game on Sunday. It was a madhouse. in downtown Atlanta. I don't know if any of the other Super Bowls I've been to, and I've been to 4 now, I don't know if any of the others had a crowd or just a throng of people walking around and filling a downtown quite the way the crowd filled downtown Atlanta this weekend. Just a ton of people. Over 1 million people visited for the weekend alone. That said, it just felt crowded. It didn't feel like there was a massive buzz of, oh my gosh, what's coming tomorrow or what's coming on Sunday. It just felt crowded. You know, there was a little buzz in the air, but there have been other games I've gone to, and I specifically remember back to Super Bowl 45 in Dallas when it was the grand Steelers tradition against the grand Packers tradition and fans from all over, and you put it in Jerry's World. That just felt like an event. You arrived at the stadium on Sunday morning and got out and walked around in that area. And if you know Jerry's World, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere in Arlington. But you walked around the tailgating lots and all of that. It felt like an event. It felt like the Super Bowl. There was a little bit of Atlanta this weekend that didn't have that buzz. But I'm not sure that's the fault of Atlanta. To me, what that was about this matchup. And what you had is you had a Super Bowl featuring a Patriots franchise that was in its 9th Super Bowl in 18 years. And I don't care who you are. The Super Bowl means something every year. But when you've gone 9 times in 18 years and you're trying to win your 6th, I'm sorry, it's not the same as trying to win the 1st or the 2nd. It's just not. I mean, what is it now? New England teams, since they won that first Super Bowl 17 years ago Sunday, they've won 12 championships between the Patriots and the Red Sox and the Bruins and the Celtics. If you're an 18-year-old in Boston, you've had 12 championship parades in your lifetime. That's insane. And I think it numbs you to the amazing and awesome scene that a Super Bowl or a championship is. And so there were a ton of Patriots fans there. You know, it's not like they've stopped supporting their team. But I think about the scene I saw after the game last night, and I was outside to be live on NewsChannel 5, pretty much as soon as the game was over. And you watch these Patriots fans stream out after winning a Super Bowl. And there were a few high fives, but it was not the chanting and rowdy and screaming and excited fans you oftentimes see with a championship. I mean, heck, sometimes we see riots and cars toppled. Certainly not condoning that, but the excitement often overwhelms people. And there's dancing in the streets, and there's spontaneous chanting and hugs with strangers and all sorts of things. Patriots fans practically filed out of the stadium in single file order last night, just talking with their friends. That's what happens when you win 6 Super Bowls in 17 years or 18 years. Just is. You cannot be as excited today for number 6 as you were for number 1, or as you were 5 years ago when they'd had a little bit of a lapse. They've now won 3 in 5 years. It's becoming commonplace for them. And then the other side of that is the team they faced in the Super Bowl, the Los Angeles Rams, have only been back in LA for a few years. They're still trying to regain the fan base out there. Also, it's Southern California, the melting pot of the United States in a lot of ways, where not everybody out there has ties to Los Angeles football, old school or new school in the first place. And you got the beach and you got Hollywood and all that, just other stuff to do. So how many people in LA truly are fans of the Rams? That's a growing number, but it's not comparable to the more established franchises out there. And then you have St. Louis, a place that housed the Rams for 2 decades, up until a few years ago. They now despise the Rams because of how they left town and the way they operated there. So they're rooting against the game. They're maybe not even paying attention to the game, as are the people in New Orleans who were upset about the way that game was officiated in the NFC Championship, and they feel like they got robbed out of a berth in Super Bowl 53. If the Saints got to Atlanta, it would have felt totally different. You've had an influx of people from New Orleans excited and ready to cheer on a team that they have a deep, deep passion for. It is intrinsically woven into the fabric of New Orleans. That's what the Saints are. You can't say that about the Rams. And so you take the Saints out of the equation, you bring in the Patriots who've done this over and over and over again, and then you bring in essentially a new franchise. Because their last 20 years got wiped from the books because no one in St. Louis cares anymore. And now you're instituting it back into Southern California and Los Angeles. How many people there truly care? And the answer to me last night was not many. Because when you looked at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it was 80-20 Patriots fans. Easily. That was your mix. It was a massive, massive home crowd for the Patriots last night at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And to me, it was about the matchup. And you take a fan base that is just used to winning, expects to win. It's hard to be as nervous when you've won it before. When you've won so many that you're used to the feeling. And then you take another fan base that, frankly, just didn't show up because it's not that big of a fan base right now, and you lose a little bit of the environment. It's still the Super Bowl, still awesome, but it's not the same as some of the games we've seen here lately. All of that made for what was an interesting and to some people a boring type of environment last night. Not Atlanta's fault, but the circumstances for sure. All right, gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll get to some of the sound from guys after Super Bowl 53, including your Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman. That's next. This is Sports Line on NewsChannel 5+.